Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a review of my 2023 year of drinking. And I think it's useful to kind of reflect back on the year that you've had, what you've had, and also what you've learned. So at the end of this, I'm going to have 10 takeaways that I have from the 2023 year. So I started out the year in Hong Kong and Singapore, and I did some videos on my visit to Singapore wine shops, which was quite popular. And I had some really nice wines in Singapore. I had the 1975 Beaujolais Boucau and the 1999 Chateau de Tetra. Then I came back here and had a wonderful 1983 Dom Perignon, which was very surprising. I was kind of worried it was going to be off, but it was spectacular. And then followed up with a trophy wine hunt video, which was really popular. So I don't think I did one in fall, but I probably will do one again in next year that just goes through what I bring back from my long-term storage. I did some videos on Barolo and then had a 2004 Haut-Brion Blanc, which was wonderful. And also had some interesting wines in the February-March time period. I had the Rivera Marese Bombino Bianco from Puglia region, from one of my favorite producers, Rivera. And then I also had the Cantina Terlano from the Alto Adige region, which I really love. I continued in April with part 2 of my Corvin challenge. That was the wines after 3 months, and I think it showed that the Corvin system works. And then I kind of dived into the International Wine Festival, which was in April. I really encourage people who are in Vancouver to go to this. It's a great wine festival, lots of Saint Bernards, really fun tastings. So I did a comprehensive guide to that. And I also did a review of one of the seminars at the wine festival, which is Crème de la Crème. I had the 1986 Pavilion Rouge Margaux from Margaux region, which was great. And then I traveled over to France and had the Chateau de Blizzard 2021 in Brully. Came back and in the summer had 1995 Angelis, 2017 Carme Haut-Brion against 2017 La Chapelle and Mission Haut-Brion. So these were really kind of interesting tastings to have. Then I had the Fallen Arbalete 2008 RSV, Romani Saint-Vivant wine. I did my 6-month tasting for part 3 of my Corvin challenge. We are now getting into the late part of the summer. I had a 1989 Liéville Lacoste, which reminded me of how much I love that wine, along with the 1986 Chateau du Cru Boucaillou and the 2010 Chateau d'Escor. I had the pleasure of drinking with Julia Negri, called Barolo Girl, in August, and drinking her wines. And then I got to drink Chateau Laffitte's new wine, Chateau Ancelin 2018. In September, I started to do some videos about the 2020 vintage because there was a Bordeaux release here in BC, and went through a couple of those videos. I had a Chateau Margaux wine trophy night, which was really fun, and then also reviewed the Chateau Palmer 2020 Alter Ego. Then in kind of late September, early October, I went to Hong Kong again. I did another video on wine hopping at the Hong Kong airport, which was kind of fun. I did a champagne primer with the history of champagne and did a short video about how to open a champagne. And why I'm kind of going through these videos, I hope that this kind of twigs people to say, oh, those were interesting videos, and go back to view them. You know, it's kind of also interesting to reflect on, wow, I had really fortunate year, drank a lot of great wines. In November, I had an Angelis dinner that I reviewed. Then I was up at Whistler Cornucopia, which is another great wine festival, local wine festival that you should go to, and had a dinner at a Raxi restaurant with Tinhorn Creek. I had the 2011 Cheval Blanc, and then the wine of the year from Wine Spectator, the Aggiano 2018 Brunello Malcitino. And then just recently, I've done some wine reviews on Grace wine, which is a Japanese white wine, and also Louis Roederer Cristal. So really eventful, fruitful, fun year of drinking for me. So here are my 10 takeaways from 2023. Number 1, Corvin works. I did a video initially on Corvin and then one at 3 months and 6 months. I'll probably do one more at the 12-month mark. But in my opinion, Corvin does work in terms of it does keep wines fresh. Number 2 takeaway is the 1989 Bordeaux vintage is spectacular. And in my tastings this year, what I found is that the 89 vintage is, in my opinion, undervalued and overlooked a lot of times. What I have found in my tastings with 1989 Bordeaux wines is that you do need time. So you need to let it breathe, you need to air it out sufficient amount of time, and it actually comes back and the firmness comes back into the wine. My number 3 takeaway is about the 2017 Bordeaux vintage. Now that I've retasted it, I tasted a lot of the wines initially when they came out on release, and now a couple of years later, I've tasted some other 2017 wines, and my impression of this vintage is that it will be a very good drinking vintage on the short-term basis. I probably wouldn't age it very long, even at the higher level growth levels, but I would think it's a very, very nice drinking wine that you probably should be consumed in the next couple of years. My number 4 takeaway is about Barolo and altitude. So for me, I have been trying to put some emphasis on Barolo, and based on my tasting, what is a key factor that I think you should look at is the altitude of the winery. And I think with global warming, my belief is that top or the premium vineyard sites is moving higher. So with Barolo, there's a range where Barolo grapes can be grown. The typical thought or the traditional thought is that you should be at the middle of that slope or that altitude to have the best wineries around 350, 380 meters above sea level. I think with global warming, that is going up a bit. So I would say that the top wineries now are a little bit higher up, maybe even to the 380 to 420 level. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in terms of my hypothesis about Barolo wines. My number 5 takeaway is about Chambord-Musigny and how much I still love this region. Why I love Chambord is it's got that black cherry, not as much acidity and tartness as some traditionally associated with Burgundy wines, and it's got a bit of firmness, not high tannins, but a firmness of tannins, which I really love. Now, number 6 takeaway is particularly to deal with Barolo and Chambord-Musigny, and what I found is that for a consumer, the blends are beautiful. So with Barolo, you can have Barolo that's just labeled that they take the grapes from anywhere in Barolo, or you can have from specific regions like Lamora or Serlanga-d'Alba. And that same thing with Chambord-Musigny. Chambord-Musigny, you can have just regular Chambord-Musigny. You have Premier Cru Chambord-Musigny, which is taken from various sites, or you can have kind of site-specific vineyards like MRS. In my tasting this year, what I found is that the blends, the general Barolos or the general Chambord-Musigny Premier Crus are really good value. They're really good wines, and when you go up to the single vineyard, you're not really getting a huge amount of difference in quality for the price. You can't make that general statement that because you're going to single vineyards that you're going to have a better wine. I don't think the tasting pleasure is any different. I think that for people like me who are really interested in kind of distinctifying each region or each vineyard, it's interesting. So if you're in the wine trade, if you're studying for WSET, if you're just really trying to learn wines, maybe those single vineyards are important. But for a regular consumer, I think just a regular Barolo or a Chambord-Musigny Premier Cru, not from a specific site, is really good value, and I would drink that all the time in restaurants as compared to a single vineyard, a site in Barolo, or a specific region or site in Chambord-Musigny, which is going to be much more expensive. And again, it's going to be more distinctive, but I don't think you can equate it to be better or more pleasurable. My 7th takeaway from this year is that consistency of ownership really matters. And that's what I found with the trend with a lot of really, really good wineries. You'll see a real consistency either in ownership or in management or in winemaker. You don't see a lot of volatility. And so for me, that's really a key component to look at things. And likewise, when you see a change in ownership, there is an opportunity for either elevation in terms of the quality of the wines, or it could also go down in terms of the quality. And what I would do is I would actually look at these wines and give it a couple of years. Winemakers, owners need at least 4 or 5 years to really turn things around, to understand their vineyard. So give them some time before you make a final judgment on that wine. My number 8 takeaway, one of the things I'm looking at closely this year is the number of fermentation tanks that each winery has. I think a lot of people concentrate on terroir and oak barrels, but one of the things I see very few people concentrating on is how many fermentation tanks that each winery has. I think that's an important thing, because the more tanks that you have, that is a very huge investment, and it allows you plot by plot vinification and fermentation. And that's really important to be able to single out plots that are not working or not blending right. It also gives you more variety in terms of what you're able to blend. So that's something that I'm going to look for more when I do reviews in 2024. My 9th takeaway is about champagne and dosage. I actually never thought about dosage with champagnes, and so now I'm looking at that more closely. And just kind of comparing those after I've had a champagne, whether the dosage matches my palate. In general, the higher the dosage, the sweeter the wine should taste. And in fact, that's one of the ways that you tell, for instance, an extra brut wine, which has a lower dosage than a brut wine. And then my last takeaway, number 10, is that I think when you're drinking trophy wines, you need time. And we have to go back to the philosophy of law, especially when you're talking about older wines. When you're talking about, in this new age, we're always rushing with things, and a long time maybe means like 30 minutes. But you have to understand, when you're drinking older wines, you are kind of going back in time. And when people were drinking these wines, they were taking more time. So therefore, these wines are structured for a longer time period to develop. And so that's what I'm finding with older wines. You actually do need a lot of time to assess them. And that means sometimes 4 to 6 hours after you've opened it. And sometimes that even means overnight, to just see the differences and the variation. And that's what I find is the beauty of older wines. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And for all of you out there, Merry Christmas. Have a very safe holiday, and wishing you all the best for 2024. Please look out for my video that's coming out on New Year's Day on my New Year's resolutions for 2024. Until next time, happy drinking.